Take a moment to look at your life. Notice how easily your state of mind is altered by a single external event. Notice how an offhand comment from a colleague, a cold glance from a stranger, or a minor change in the weather can dismantle your inner peace for an entire day. You believe you're a free individual, yet you're granted every path and circumstance the power to dictate your joy and your sorrow. This is the harsh reality you must confront. To let the outside world rule your mind is to live in a state of quiet, involuntary servitude. You tell yourself that you care because you are human. You whisper that it is natural to be shaken by the chaos of life. Examine thought deeply. This constant reactivity is not a law of nature. It is a failure of inner governance. When you exhaust your spirit trying to adjust to every unpredictable shift in your environment, you are not practicing awareness. You are confessing that your own worth is non-existent without external alignment. You are placing your highest good into the hands of the preoccupied, the indifferent, and the deeply flawed universe around you. Consider the hours you waste in the quiet of the night. Replay after replay, you dissect what they meant. You agonize over what went wrong. You construct imaginary arguments to defend your choices. Stop the self-infliction immediately. The world is not hurting you in those modes. Your critics are sleepy. Your challengers have placed. You are using your own imagination to brew an emotional play that you then choose to drink. This overthinking is a betrayal of your own reason. We must learn to look at human nature and external events with total clarity. The world will ripple. People will judge. Conditions will change. That is the nature of reality. But your suffering does not come from the trunk itself. It comes from your refusal to accept the external events belong entirely outside of you. Real tranquility is not a world where nothing goes wrong. Real tranquility is an internal sanctuary where events are recognized as mere external vibrations. It is time to stop seeking stability from a world that cannot even sustain its own peace. It is time to return to the path of self-mastery. To navigate the complexities of daily life, you must first go away but wrong on the staying of your nature. Specifically, the subtle psychological traps that bind your spirit to the whims of emotional reactivity. We live in a world that quietly feeds on your impulses, transforming natural human feelings into a profound condition of interdependency. This is the trap of emotional instability. A condition where your mind becomes structured entirely around the shifting tides of your current mood. You begin to modify your goals. You alter your long-term plans. And you abandon your discipline. Simply because your temporary emotions dictate path of leisure. Look closely at this modern affliction. It is a quiet disease that compels you to sacrifice your future self at the altar of immediate goal. When you operate from this state of mind, you are no longer living with a clear purpose. You are acting out a script written by the anxieties and mood swings of the present moment. Every choice becomes burdened by a silent question. Do I feel like doing this right now? This is not a harmless habit. It is systematic erosion of your inner freedom. By making your current emotional state your primary guide, you willingly step into a psychological cage where the keys are held by unpredictable feelings that change with the wind. Observe how this trap manifests in your daily routine when you face the lack of a steady internal anger. You set a meaningful path for yourself. A promise to work, to create, or to maintain your health. Yet, when the hour arrives, a wave of fatigue or shadow self-doubt passes through your consciousness. Instantly, a silent negotiation begins within your mind. You weigh your sacred promises against your temporary lack of motivation, and you allow your feelings to win. This constant submission to you moves breed to deep, perpetual dread. You walk into your professional space carrying the heavy weight of unearned inadequacy. When a colleague succeeds, you turn off the inspiration. You feel a sudden threat to your own value, allowing envy to poison your perspective. When a minor error occurs in your work, your mind rushes to the conclusion that your entire trajectory is a failure. You become consumed by the phantom fears of what might go wrong, exhausting your vital energy trying to fix the unsaid, trying to adjust your life to fit an illusion of constant certainty. This is a state of constant, exhausting hypervigilance. The ultimate consequence of this lifestyle is the total loss of your internal compass. Every human being requires a foundational core, an internal standard of truth and virtue that guides their actions regardless of the external weather. When your eyes are constantly fixed on the reactions of your environment, that core begins to dissolve. You look outside for direction, completely forgetting how to look within. If your surroundings are quiet, you feel a temporary sense of worth. If your surroundings become chaotic or hypercritical, your entire identity collapses into despair. Think of the sheer tragedy of this existence. Your emotional stability has no anchor. It drifts listlessly on the tide of poetic sentiment and sudden impulses. You have allowed the external world and your internal anxieties to define what is good, what is valuable, and who you are. You have traded your authentic self-mastery for a fragile seat at the table of temporary emotional relief. The voice of your own reason has been drowned out by the deafening roar of external expectations and unexamined moods. To recover your clarity, you must recognize that this psychological exhaustion is self-inflicted. The events around you are not actively conspiring to steal your peace. They are simply living within their own confusion, fighting their own unexamined battles. They offer their challenges carelessly without deep thought, and yet you treat their casual remarks and unexpected changes as absolute judgments on your existence. You are overvaluing the fleeting thoughts of a world that rarely takes the time to evaluate its own wisdom. This psychological dependency can only exist if you choose to participate. The moment you begin to study these traits within yourself, the trap begins to lose its power. See the urge to flee from discomfort for what it truly is: a fear of growth. See the height of reactivity for what it truly is: a rejection of your own unique path. The first step toward genuine emotional discipline is to stand fully exposed to harsh truth. To acknowledge that you have been looking for your reflection in a broken mirror. It is time to turn your gaze away from the gallery of spectators and focus entirely on the quality of your own character. School your thoughts and reason, and step firmly onto the path of wisdom. To heal from the exhaustion of this emotional dependency, we must anchor our minds in the ancient truths of those who refuse to let the world dictate their serenity. Consider the profound reflections of the ancient masters, who found their greatest solace within the quiet chambers of their own reason. They walked through crowded halls of flattery and whispered betrayal. Yet they maintained a steady clarity by holding fast to a single, unshakable truth: that the actions and opinions of another person exist only within their own domain. It does not touch your reality. This insight leads us directly to the foundational pillar of all Stoic wisdom, a concept left to us by Epictetus, known as the dichotomy of control. He demanded that a wise person look at the universe and draw an absolute line between two things: what is up to us, And what is not up to us? Up to us our own opinions, our own choices, our own desires, and our own internal responses. Not up to us is everything else, including the actions, the expectations, and the spoken words of the people around us. When you truly internalize this distinction, a profound weight is lifted from your shoulders. You realize that when an associate criticizes your work out of envy, or when a companion fails to appreciate your kindness, they are operating entirely in the category of things outside your control. You cannot reach into their mind and alter their perception. Since it is outside of your control, it is completely irrelevant to your inner peace. Your only responsibility in that moment is to ensure that your own response is guided by reason and emotional discipline. Therefore, to spend your life worrying about what takes place outside your control is a terrified waste of your immediate awareness. Their thoughts are not your property. Their approval cannot elevate your soul, and their condemnation cannot diminish your virtue. To try and manage how the world perceives you or how external events unfold is like trying to control the movement of the clouds or the path of the wind. It is an impossible task that yields nothing but anxiety and despair. Your unique domain is your own mind, and that is where your full attention must return. True freedom begins the moment you stop demanding that external conditions align with your wishes. You cease begging human nature to be something other than what is. You accept that people will be short-sighted, selfish, and critical, but you also recognize that their flaws have no power to stain the purity of your own thoughts. You become a keeper of your own sanctuary, focusing entirely on cultivating wisdom and self-mastery, while letting the external variations of the world unfold as they must, without ever surrendering your tranquility to them. To safeguard this inner freedom, we must advance from simply categorizing the world to actively sheltering our thoughts within. The ancient masters discovered that a mind left unguarded will naturally absorb the anxieties and chaos of its surroundings. To counter this vulnerability, they developed a psychological framework that does not require you to flee from society, but to cultivate an unshakable quietude in the very midst of it. This is the practice of emotional discipline, a deliberate, meditative detachment from the unthinking noise of external circumstances. Do not mistake this for a total absence of human feeling. The Stoic path does not ask you to transform your heart into cold marble, or to reach a state where you feel absolutely nothing. When a harsh critique is leveled against you, or when you face an unexpected setback, you will feel a natural flash of discomfort. That is human biology. That is the initial impression striking your consciousness. The error occurs when you allow the initial impression to take root, when you give it permission to blossom into a week of misery and self-doubt. True emotional disciplines captured in the ancient rule of self-governance. Few understand governing. You acknowledge a sting the external within. You examine it under the clear light of your reason, and then you calmly decide its true value. When you apply this filter of reason, you recognize that the gossip of the workplace with a sudden shift in external conditions possess zero intrinsic power over your soul. They do not affect your health. They do not alter your capacity to act with justice, and they cannot corrupt your character, because they have no bearing on your virtue. They must be met with an attitude of calm indifference, mattering nothing to your core. By adopting this sense of self-mastery, You break the visible threads that others use to disturb your peace. Imagine staying on the center of a glaring marketplace. Thousands of voices are showing covert opinions around you. A person without discipline tries to listen to every voice, trying to answer them, trying to correct them, becoming utterly maddened by the din. But the wise person simply walks through the crowd, hearing the noise as a single, undifferentiated hum, like the sound of waves crashing against the distant shore. The waves rise and fall, but the shore remains completely unmoved. This is the ultimate realization of tranquility. You no longer resent those who judge or misunderstand you, because you realize their actions are merely the predictable output of their current understanding. You view their criticisms and the incompleted chaos of life with the same neutrality as we real a cloudy sky or saying downpour. It is an external reality that you observe with complete clarity, but you refuse to let it change the climate of your inner world. Examine the immense liberation that comes from this perspective. You are no longer performing for an aims. You are no longer begging the world to grant you a peace that you already hold within yourself. You have withdrawn your emotional investments on the volatile market of external events and placed it entirely into the secure vault of your own character. Let the world praise you or condemn you. Let them see your value or walk past you in ignorance. Your tranquility remains untouched, because your worth is defined not by what occurs outside, but by the quiet integrity of your own choices. With the foundations of wisdom firmly set, you must now transition from passive understanding to the active fortification of your daily life. To rescue your mind from the exhaustion of overthinking, you must establish a clear and unyielding boundary around your attention. This requires the implementation of the filter of reason. Think of your mind as a sacred space. Yet, at this very moment, you are allowing every passing opinion, every casual critique, and every external change to wander across your consciousness unchecked. You are treating your attention like an open road, and then you wonder why your spirit feels cluttered and weary. From this day forward, you must become a vigilant guardian of what you choose to entertain. When an external event occurs, whether it is a cold remark from a companion or a subtle sign of disapproval from your peers, it must not be granted immediate access to your emotions. It must pause at the gates of your reason. You must examine with absolute detachment and ask a single question. Does this external event alter the quality of my character? Does it prevent me from acting with justice, wisdom, and kindness? If the answer is no, then that event is completely empty of significance. It does not deserve a single minute of your consideration. You simply drop the curtain of your indifference and leave that noise exactly where it belongs, outside of your reality. This practice leads us to the heart of true emotional discipline, which is the establishment of your inner freedom. Remember the timeless principle of the ancient masters. Feel it, understand it, govern it. To live a life of wisdom does not mean you become an unfeeling stone. When you face an unfair judgment or a difficult situation, a natural wave of discomfort may rise within your chest. This is simply human biology responding to aggression. Do not fight the feeling and do not judge yourself for experiencing. Look at it clearly. Acknowledge its presence, but do not let it become your master. Do not allow that brief flash of discomfort to transform into hours of resentment or nights of endless overthinking. Observe the emotion, understand its external source, and then use your reason to govern it before it can disturb your deeper tranquility. To maintain this discipline, you must completely relinquish the exhausting need to control what others think of you. Much of your mental fatigue comes from a misguided desire to correct every misunderstanding and win over every critic. You must accept a simple reality of human nature. Some people will never understand you. Some will misinterpret your kindness as weakness, and others will project their own insecurities onto your choices. That is their journey, not yours. You have an absolute right to let them be wrong about you. Let go of the heavy burden of needing to be validated by minds that are themselves filled with confusion. When you grant others the total freedom to misunderstand you, they claim their own freeing for their influence. Their opinions are merely external circumstances, as far beyond your control as the weather or the turning of the tides. Your only duty is to remain true to your own principles, to act with integrity, and to keep your internal compass steady. Let the world ripple and turn outside your gates, while you remain beautifully anchored in the quiet clarity of your own self-mastery. Once you have drawn the line of scrutiny within your mind, you must learn how to project that boundary into your daily interactions. True emotional discipline's not a loud or aggressive display. It is practiced through an elegant and quiet refusal to engage with the chaos of others. When an associate seeks to burden you with unearned guilt, or when a companion hurls a critical remark intended to shake your confidence, they are inviting you to join them in their internal turbulence. This is the exact moment you must implement the art of elegant refusal. An elegant refusal begins with the absolute mastery of your physical presence. When the provocative words are spoken, your first and most vital task is to implement the pause of clarity. Do not rush to answer. Do not let your breath quicken. And do not allow your body to tense defensively. Instead, let deliberate space of time open up between their words and your presence. Look at them calmly, allowing the silence to settle into the room. In this pause of clarity, you are doing something profound under the surface of the conversation. You are preventing their external confusion from leaking into your fortress. You are taking that brief moment to remind your reason that their words are an external thing, matching nothing to your actual worth. This quiet hesitation completely disrupts the momentum of the critic. They expect an immediate defensive reaction. Instead, they are met with a mirror of absolute stillness. By the time they choose to speak, you are not responding from a place of wounded pride, but from a position of unshakable clarity. This practice requires an unwavering self-discipline that does not falter based on your environment. Setting a boundary is not a temporary tactic to be used only when you feel energetic. It is a permanent standard of living. Many individuals fail to maintain their tranquility because they compromise their boundaries to avoid a brief moment of social awkwardness. They allow an overbearing relative to diminish their choices, or they let a demanding colleague impose upon their time, simply because they want to maintain a superficial harmony. Every time you compromise a boundary to appease someone else, you are actively participating in the erosion of your own inner freedom. You must maintain your standard with absolute consistency, regardless of whose face you are looking at. Whether he is an influential supervisor at your workplace, an old friend, or a member of your own household, the boundary remains identical. You treat their presence with utmost courtesy and respect, but you refuse to let their unexamined opinions penetrate your sanctuary. Let the world observe your stillness and interpret it as they will. They may call you distant, They may perceive you as unyielding or detached from their social games. Their labels are merely reflections of their own confusion. Your only concern is to remain entirely true to the laws of your own reason. Keep your guard steady. Maintain the pause of clarity in the face of provocation. And treat your personal tranquility as the sacred property that can never betray you for the cheap comfort of public approval. The pause of clarity in your elegant stance of refusal below the central space for function. Yet there are moments when human interaction requires an explicit verbal boundary. When you choose to speak, your words must not be born out of a desire to wound the other person or to defend your wounded pride. Instead, you must use precise verbal instruments that reflect your commitment to emotional discipline and clear reason. These are your mental scripts, designed to communicate your boundaries while keeping your tranquility perfectly intact. The first of these tools is the opinion deflection script. Imagine a scenario where a companion or an associate offers an unsolicited critique of your personal life or your choices. They want you to become defensive. They want you to justify your path so they can examine and judge your reasons. Instead of entering that arena, you look at them with a completely relaxed expression and deliver this precise phrase. Thank you for your perspective. However, this does not determine my path. Let those words settle quietly into the space between you. Notice what this script achieves under the surface of the conversation. By saying thank you for your perspective, you are not validating their criticism as an absolute truth. You are simply acknowledging that their mind has produced a thought. You are recognizing their human nature. Then, with the second part of the phrase, you neatly separate their thoughts from your reality. You are stating as a matter of fact that their opinion carries zero authority over your character or your choices. You have heard the noise, filtered through reasoning, and like the outside their sanctuary. The you can tool at your disposal is the human misunderstanding script. This is reserved for those moments when someone intentionally misinterprets your actions or remains committed to a false view of you. When you realize they are committed to their bias, you do not waste your breath explaining yourself. You look at them with total clarity and say, "You're entirely free to see me as you choose. I have no need to alter your view." This script is an expression of true self-mastery. It demonstrates that you have completely relinquished the exhausting need to manage the contents of another person's mind. You are granting them the complete freedom to be wrong about you, and by doing so, you claim your own freedom from their judgment. You are no longer standardizing your life to fit their vision. They may try to push further, or they may express frustration at your lack of reactivity. But your boundary has been spoken in the language of reason, and it remains entirely unshakable. The words of your mental scripts are only as effective as the manner in which they are delivered. To ensure your boundaries are respected, you must understand that your physical presence carries far more meaning than the actual syllables you speak. If you utter a phrase of self-mastery while your hands tremble, your breath is hurried, or your posture is defensive, you are sending a conflicted signal. You are showing that your internal sanctuary is still in turmoil. Therefore, you must combine your scripts with the measured response execution. The primary rule of this execution is an absolute requirement to lower the velocity of your speech. When an associate or companion tends to provoke you, a natural human instinct is to speak quickly, to interrupt, or to rush through your sentences out of a subconscious desire to escape the discomfort of the moment. You must deliberately resist this urge. Take a slow, measured breath and let your words fall into the room with absolute calmness. Leave deliberate spaces of silence between your sentences. This measured pacing demonstrates to everyone present that you are completely in control of your own timeline. As you slow down your cadence, you must also maintain a perfectly balanced and gentle tone of voice. There is no need to raise your volume. Raising your volume is a clear sign that your emotional discipline is cracked and that you are trying to use aggression to compensate for fear. True inner strength speaks with a quiet, steady resonance. Keep your voice flat, devoid of bitterness or hostility, and speak from a place of grounded clarity. When you deliver a boundary script with this gentle firmness, it carries the weight of an unalterable reality. Simultaneously, you must bring absolute stillness to physical body. Do not shift your weight back and forth, do not fidget with your fingers, and do not let your gaze wander anxiously around a room. Keep your eyes calmly fixed on the individual before you. Your posture should reflect the tranquility of your mind, relaxed, open, yet completely unyielding. This physical stillness, paired with your low, measured cadence, forms a powerful shield of emotional discipline. Imagine the profound transformation in your daily interactions when you deploy this mastery. An individual hurls an unfair criticism at you, expecting a storm of anger or a lengthy justification. Instead, you pause for a few seconds, look them in the eye with total serenity, and speak your script in a quiet, deliberate, and beautifully steady tone. They will realize in an instant that their words have failed to destabilize you. They've not encountered or yet their mind the anchor pour into the mud. They've encountered a person who has mastered the art of self-governance. The architecture of your mind has been fundamentally transformed today. Look closely at the heavy chains of social approval and overthinking that used to bind your spirit. They are nothing but dust at your feet. From this moment onward, you are no longer a helpless spectator in the theater of other people's confusion. You are no longer a leaf blown about by the careless words of an associate or the cold glance of a companion. You have reclaimed the governance of your own consciousness. You have stepped into the world with a deep sense of self-mastery. A calm entity who moves through the chaos of humanity completely untouched, completely clear, completely free. This profound truth is not a luxury meant for the unexamined minds of the crown. It is a sacred practice meant only for those who possess the emotional discipline to cultivate. If these eternal insights of the ancient masters have fortified your spirit, if they have added clarity to your boundaries and tranquility to your vision, then let us ensure this wisdom reaches the rest of our intellectual circle. Express your silent alignment with these principles by interacting with the icons of affirmation below. Helping this truth circulate to those who are still searching for their inner freedom. Your fortress of reason is built, your guard is set, and your scripts are ready. Do not look back at the anxiety you left behind. Carry this absolute stillness into every room you enter. Let the world ripple its foolishness against the stone walls of your clarity, while you remain a monument of unshakable peace. Look to the next presentation on your screen to deepen your mastery of human nature. Stay strong, stay wise, and keep living your truth.